But this, now wait a minute, let me get down here. This is Justus. Justus is a bald eagle. Large, very large, immature bald eagle. Now she doesn't have a white head or a white tail, and that's because she's still a baby, more or less. She's a juvenile bird, 2.5 years old. Uh-oh, somebody got their finger hurt. 2.5 years old, so she will not get a white head and white tail for another 2 years. 2 years from now, as she starts to get her fall plumage, her feathers will change rather dramatically. Now, she's already getting some white showing up through her uniformly dark feathers, but that will become quite dramatic in 2 years from now. Her beak will change from the dark coloration to bright yellow, and her eyes, that are now kind of a light hazily look, will get bright yellow as well. When they're young, they're uniformly dark, and part of that is protection, camouflage. They can sit in a tree and be invisible. And, you know, not all birds are real bright, frankly, and eagles may not be the brightest bulb on the avian Christmas tree and compared to some other birds, like vultures as an example, but they are quite spectacular. And this bird is a very large female. You can see she's got about a 7.5, maybe 8 foot wingspan if she were really to soar, but unfortunately her shoulder is injured because she was stepped on, probably by one of her parents, in the nest when she was still a tiny chick, and her shoulder was injured to the point that she can't really extend her wing fully. So she has never, well actually she's flown one time, and it was on a private Learjet from Florida to Virginia. Some friends of mine agreed to run taxi service for her, so they picked her up at the Orlando airport and flew her up to Roanoke, and I picked her up there, and she's now a part of our education program. Now, this bird is actually quite well behaved because she's been in captivity most of her life, and honestly it's the best behaved eagle I've ever had to deal with. Eagles are not, you know, people say, boy, I wish I had that for a pet, and there are days I wish you had this for a pet too. We're going to back into the shade here a little bit. I will come back out and give you all some more pictures, but these birds are really creatures of their environment. They are primarily fish eaters, but honestly most wildlife, they just want to eat. And so they will eat dead stuff wherever they find it. And if they can't find something already dead, they'll go kill it. Whoa! Got the front row waking up here. That was when the Kennedy Center cleared. But I kept my grip that time. But these birds are really creatures designed to do what they do. Their talons, razor sharp. Now, this glove that I've got on is not for the look, I promise you. There are several layers of leather, probably, well, there are at least 4 layers of leather and heavy padding in between. And she got mad at me this morning, and she got hold of the index finger of this glove and cranked down. My finger's going to be black and blue for 2 weeks. And so, you know, that's one of the things. You know, gee, it looks so cool to work with wildlife. And have to get to know you better to show you some of the scars, I promise you. But it is a privilege and it is a pleasure, and almost without exception, any time I've ever been hurt by an animal, it was my fault. Because I didn't respect them, didn't think about what they were doing, or just forgot the rules, forgot the basics, forgot how fast they are, how powerful they are. And even this morning, one of her leashes had come out, so I was grabbing her to put it back in. So of course she was going to fight back, and once we got it back in, then she was back in charge and we're all okay here. What she wants to do is go over the wall. She can see over the wall back up into the real shade. But this particular bird in the wild is a fish catcher most of the time, but they also eat ducks and turtles. And the sad thing is that they also eat a lot of carrion. They also eat a lot of dead stuff. So, and now, in case you wonder, when she's hanging upside down like that, does it hurt her? Her legs are the most powerful part of her body. So they're like shock absorbers. Strong, solid bones, powerful muscles and tendons, and when she cranks down, she can generate 500 pounds of pressure per square inch. So hanging upside down doesn't hurt her. It keeps me, or it allows me to keep her from hurting herself. If she were to fly and hit this post or the counter behind me, her wing bones are quite different. They're hollow, much like drinking straws, and not as big as you'd think. And so simply the power of whacking them on an edge could break her wing. So when I let her hang upside down, it's for her protection. So anyway, back to the story. Now people see a bird like this and they say, oh my goodness, aren't you afraid of that beak? Well, let me tell you that the beak is more for show, the feet are for fighting. The feet are really the main tools. The power, the talons, and that's where they catch their fish, that's where they kill their prey, and that's where they fight and defend their habitats. And if you corner an eagle, as I tried to this morning, come on, back up. There. When you corner her, as I might just in any minute now, she rolls over on her back and puts her feet in the air. And let me tell you, when you're looking at two eagle feet that are the size of my hand coming at you like this, you want to think twice. Now she's making a point here. She's reaching down. She's hot, she's thirsty, and she'd just as soon be sitting in her tub. And this kind of a day, we've got a deep tub for her, and she'd get right in there and just sit there in the tub, you know, like a spa. But the beak has its purpose. The beak is the knife and fork. When they catch a fish, they'll kill the fish with their talons, and then that beak is simply used to rip off bite-sized pieces. So the tip of the beak is extremely sharp, and the inside curve is also relatively sharp. So they sort of scoop off pieces of meat, or dig right in, stand on whatever it is, and just tear loose a piece. Now, people think it's really cool to work with wildlife, or you imagine that it is. And the truth is, it is very cool to work with wildlife, but it's not always what you might think. And, you know, you've seen bloopers of programs, but the thing, when you get a wildlife blooper working with things like eagles, usually there's blood associated with it, and almost always it's mine. A couple of years ago, I was releasing some bald eagles up in Prince William County, some babies. The nest tree had blown down in a subdivision up there, and the Fish and Wildlife Service and the State Department of Game and Inland Fisheries asked us to go catch the birds and raise them in captivity, which we did, and there was a big female about this size. Well, my staff at the Wildlife Center, my colleagues, I should call them, my colleagues at the Wildlife Center neglected to mention to me that the big female was a fighter. Now, I'm pretty sure if they had said it, I'd have remembered it, but, and I'm pretty sure they won't forget again. But there we were, I had my safety goggles on, I had my gloves on, I reached into the cage to release this bird back to the wild, and I'm watching her feet. And I'm wrestling with her, and she reaches up and grabs hold of the side of my face. Remember I told you about them ripping off chunks? Oh yeah. And who should be standing right in front of me but CBS television live. And so Associated Press picks it up. And so all over the country I'm getting emails from people saying, don't you know you're not supposed to put your face in their mouth, you know, from my friends. And so there you are. It's great fun. But rather than kind of blather on, she's going to live in captivity for the rest of her life, which could be 35 or 40 years. And she'll probably still be doing this work long after I'm done doing this work, or just plain done. But nonetheless, it's part of the way that, you know, and is she free in spirit? You know, you can tell she wants to be free in spirit and wants to be free in person. And so, yeah, it's a compromise. People ask us, you know, isn't it cruel to the animal to keep her in captivity? Well, if we turn her loose, she'll be dead in a week. So is that cruel? Well, that's nature's way, but, you know, sometimes you make compromises. And in this situation, the compromise we make, we think it's important for people like you who care about animals like this to get to see them up close. And, you know, you can look at all the pictures in the world. But you sit here and you're able to look at a bird like this, and you see how big they are, and you see how they act, and you see that they've got personalities. There's not a picture anywhere in the world that can convey that. And that's why we do what we do, and that's why we're so happy to support our friends here at Maymont.